Halloween situation I've got going on here. I should not have worn this shirt while sitting against this wall. Oops. Hello friends! So today's video is going to be about what order you should read the Cosmere in. Everyone has an opinion on what order you should read the Cosmere in. This is no different. This is just going to be my personal opinions and recommendations. That being said, what is the Cosmere? If you don't know what the Cosmere is, it is a set of books written by Brandon Sanderson that take place on these different planets that are all within the same universe as each other. They're all connected in very small and sometimes very large ways. However, you do not need to read the entirety of the Cosmere to understand a single story within it. Like I said, a lot of the things that are connecting them, at least at this point in all of the books, is very small and subtle, and you will not be lost on any of the story if you just want to read one book or one series and not read the entirety of the Cosmere. You're not going to miss out on anything. I mean, I personally think you should read the whole Cosmere because it's my whole brand, but you're not going to be lost in any of the single stories if you don't read all of them. That's absolutely not a problem. So you don't have to dive all the way in. However, shut up, Casey. Casey agrees with me. I just asked her if she agreed with what reading order I should say in this video. Thanks, Casey. However, if you're a reader who's been wanting to jump into the Cosmere but just hasn't known where to begin, that's where I come in. The problem here is there's no right or wrong way to do it. There are ways that might make more sense if you plan to read the whole thing, or that might be a little easier depending on how you like to read, but there's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm just going to preface this by saying you can do whatever the hell you want. Basically, getting into the Cosmere is like a choose-your-own-adventure story. It all just kind of depends on what you want to do. So I'm going to kind of talk you through what your options are and then tell you what my recommended order is after that fact. If you don't want to sit through me explaining all of this stuff and you just want to hear me say my actual recommended suggested order, I will put a timestamp here so you can skip all of my rambling, but I'm going to try to keep it short. This is the Cosmere and I like to talk about it. Okay, you do not have to listen to me or what anybody else says. That being said, here's my opinions. So if you want to start small and maybe just kind of get your feet wet a little bit before you dive completely into the Cosmere, you're going to want to start with one of the standalone stories. Your options there are Elantris and Warbreaker. My personal recommendation is going to be Warbreaker. However, these are both fantastic and I love them both. They are both recommended, always. All of the Cosmere is recommended from me. But I'm going to suggest you start with Warbreaker. It is a stunning story with an incredible cast, incredible magic system. It's super short, it's not long, it's not hard to get into, and it works very well as a standalone story. I will say currently, Sanderson is planning a sequel to this, but it's gonna be a while before he gets to it because he's got all these other projects on his plate. So we're not planning on getting the sequel for this for a long time. It does sit well as a standalone story for now. Not to say that it won't make you want more. I personally do. I'm still waiting. I'll be patient. Basically, you've got the story follows these two polar opposite sisters who are princesses. Got a very sarcastic god who does not believe in his own religion. One of my favorite characters in the whole book. I need a moment. Sorry. Okay. You got a ragtag crew of mercenaries, and most importantly, everyone's favorite talking sword. That's right. There is a talking sword in this book who just wants to destroy evil. It's a good sword. It's doing its best. Anyways, I highly recommend this book. I think it's a wonderful place to start because you don't have to get too deep into anything. It's a very colorful story. It's very breathtaking. Anyone who's read Warbreaker just rolled their eyes at me right now, but I will not stop. You can't shame me out of my puns. You can also go with Elantris, like I said. It's well as a standalone as well. I will say that this was Sanderson's first published novel. Well, it was like the 8th or 10th or 20th book he wrote, I don't remember. It was the very first one he got published, so I will say it's not to the same quality as Mistborn and Stormlight because it was just the very first one he put out there. Not to say that it is not fantastic. I love this book. Although I will say it's been a while since I read it, so I don't remember it well enough to give you guys a good description of it. I will say that I did a blind book swap for the Cosmere books a while back, and what I wrote for this one was a dead prince brings hope to the damned while his fiancée fights a battle of wits against a conqueror. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, I do recommend it. Please give it a shot. There's a lot of political intrigue in this book, so if that's your jam, dive on in. If you are someone who maybe wants a little bit more going on, you want a solid trilogy, I'm gonna suggest you start with Mistborn. Mistborn is everything. I will never not recommend Mistborn. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. Vin is one of my all-time favorite characters, and I see so much of myself in her. It's a 3-book series, 3 books here. A solid, complete series. It's an intriguing, wonderful, immersive story. There's a lot of morally gray characters in the found family that kind of evolves throughout the series. Nothing is as it seems. It's so good. Like, I can't even put into words how good the series is. I personally I love it so much. I will also say that the ending of this series is my all-time favorite ending to a series that I have ever read. I know not everyone who's finished Mistborn agrees with that, but it was the most satisfying ending to a book I have ever read, while it also destroyed me. Like, it's painful, it's not happy, but it's well done, and I was so pleased with it. Like, I still remember just like how wonderful I felt when I read the end of the series. Like, it struck me so much. And so I highly recommend it just on that fact alone. Why am I holding Well of Ascension? That's the second book. Mistborn, this is what we're talking about. Anyways, it's so good. I definitely recommend reading Mistborn before you read Stormlight Archive, just because Mistborn is a complete story while Stormlight Archive is still in progress. As far as like wider Cosmere hints and knowledge, you get a lot more of that in the Mistborn series than you do in some of the other Cosmere books. It's a very good just starting point if you're wanting to read more of the Cosmere outside of like just the one series. I think you get the most of that in the Mistborn series, and I think I would have benefited a lot if I'd started here. I didn't know about the Cosmere when I started reading these books, but I highly recommend starting with Mistborn if you want to start with the series. Like I said, if you want to start small, Warbreaker is what I recommend. Stormlight Archive. Stormlight Archive is my favorite of the entire Cosmere. This is also my favorite book currently of all time. It's my favorite series. I've got tattoos. Stormlight Archive is, I can't even put into words like what this book means to me personally. It absolutely changed me, and I will forever be grateful for it. But that's another video altogether. We're not going to get in that right now. Basically, Stormlight Archive is currently 3 books. The 4th book comes out later this year in November. I'm really excited. And it's supposed to be a 10-book series. So, you know, when you jump into this, get ready for the ride, because it's going to be a ride. That sounded really southern, in case you guys didn't know I'm from the South. You follow 3 characters in Stormlight Archive. You've got the surgeon turned soldier. You've got the scholar turned thief. You've got the High Prince, whose thirst for battle has waned, and he's looking for better ways to end the war. It's real big. It's massive. You've got a massive fantasy world with a massive magic system, and it's vast, and it's just like so alive, and I can't even want to like give you guys like an actual descriptor of like anything what this story is about, because when I read this book, I didn't know a damn thing. I didn't even read the back of it. I just picked it up and I went in, and I was like, what? It was so good. So, if you obviously want to know more about any of these books, just look up the actual like synopsis on Goodreads or whatever, because I don't want to get into it, and that's going to make this video way longer than it already is. But while Stormlight is my favorite, I do recommend putting it a little further down the line in the reading order. So to recap, my recommended reading order is really start with Mistborn. It really is the best entry into the Cosmere, in my personal opinion. If you plan on reading through the entire Cosmere, just start here. It's 3 books. They're not like super long, right? It's like a 630-page book. They're not that big, and it's such a good story. The journey you go on with these characters is just intense. It's like I want to reread it right now. So yes, I would say start with Mistborn. But however, if you really want to start smaller, you don't want to commit to a series when you start off, Warbreaker is the way to go. Like I said, you can also go with Elantris. These are interchangeable, but Warbreaker, in my opinion, is just a little bit better. I liked it a little bit more, I'll say. Not to shame Elantris. It's still a good story. Serene, really good character. I love Serene. Anyways, if you do start with Mistborn, I would say follow that up with Warbreaker. And if you decide to start with Warbreaker, I would follow it up with Mistborn. Basically, pick one of these and then do the other one next is my start-off recommendation. You definitely need to read Warbreaker before you jump into Stormlight Archive, for reasons I will not say, but it will just make the experience of reading the Stormlight Archive that much better if you've already read Warbreaker. There's some things in this series that it's not gonna like, you're not gonna miss out. I started with this, and I wish I'd read this first, because I didn't get to enjoy the kind of little Easter eggs, we'll say, that popped up from this book in this series. Um, so I missed out on that a little bit. So I definitely say please read Warbreaker before Stormlight, just for your own personal enjoyment and for all this stuff to make sense. So if you really don't care about like starting with a small book, starting with a series, you plan to read all of the Cosmere and you just want to know the best way to do that in, the best order in my personal opinion is read Mistborn, all 3 books of Era One, get through these, and then you're going to want to go with Warbreaker after that. After you read Warbreaker, I would suggest jumping into the Stormlight Archive. It's big. They're big boys. So you got to be ready for this. After Stormlight, I would suggest going ahead and doing Elantris. Again, it's not a super big book. It's a nice, easy standalone. You'll breeze right through it. After that, I'm going to suggest you read Mistborn Era 2. Now, if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, Mistborn Era 2 is a continuation of the first Mistborn series. It takes place 300 years after the first series ends. And there's going to be multiple Mistborn eras. Right now, this is Era 2. We're waiting for Era 2 to finish. People also refer to this as the Wax and Wane series because those are your main characters, are Wax and Wane. There's 3 of them right now. We're going to have a 4th one soon, I hope. And then he's going to move on to Mistborn Era 3, and there's going to be a Mistborn Era 4. Like I said before, if you just want to read like Mistborn or Stormlight, you're not going to be lost if you don't read the entire Cosmere. However, as the Cosmere progresses down these timelines and he writes more books, they are all kind of converging to a point where all of it's going to connect. And so if that sounds like something you're interested in, now's a good time to get into it before it's all done, because that's just so much. There's already so much. So I suggest Mistborn, Warbreaker, Stormlight, Elantris, Mistborn Era 2, and then after that, somebody's sad. I will say, if you do decide to read the Stormlight Archive, whenever you do, there is a short story that takes place between book 2 and 3. That's correct. Edgedancer. You can buy it as its own little book. It's also in the Arcanum Unbounded, which is a full collection of Cosmere novellas. I told you this Cosmere thing's massive, guys. There's so much. Edgedancer is one you need to read before you read Oathbringer. So between books 2 and 3 of Stormlight, you're going to want to read Edgedancer. It's not going to kill you if you don't, but you should. It follows one of the side characters, and it's fun. It's so fun. Emperor's Soul, which I forgot to bring up, which is another Cosmere novella. It takes place on the same world as Elantris, but it's following a different character. It's showing you a different magic system, basically on the same planet. There's different magics, and so it's very short. I think this is like 160 pages. It's very tiny. It's very good. So when you read Elantris, go ahead and pick up Emperor's Soul. You're gonna have fun with it. Once you kind of start diving into the Cosmere, there is all of these short stories. Edgedancer, Emperor's Soul are both in here, along with other stories. There's one called The Hope of Elantris that goes with Elantris. You want to read that after you read Elantris. There's a couple for Mistborn, one of which you have to read after you've finished Mistborn Era 2. You cannot read it before you've finished Mistborn Era 2. That's all I'm gonna say. I will fight you. Okay. Anyways, that's my recommended reading order. You should start with Mistborn or Warbreaker. You can kind of interchange those however fits you best, and then follow the train from there. And good luck. So that's my Cosmere reading order video. If you did not agree with my suggested reading orders, fight with me in the comments about it down below. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, please comment and like debate with me. That's fine. Because there is no right way to do it. So like if you don't agree with my way, come tell me. We'll talk about it. I just want to talk about the Cosmere. It's all I ever want to talk about, you guys. If you liked this video, please subscribe. I will be doing lots of more videos on the topic of the Cosmere in the near future. It's basically my brand. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Cosmere related content coming in the coming weeks. I have a lot of videos planned. I just haven't been able to do any of them yet because I've been sick, but I am slowly getting better. So there's that. Hopefully you guys like this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions about anything relating to the Cosmere, put them down below. I will be happy to answer them. I have read all of these books multiple times. Elantris I've only read once, and I'm going to reread it very soon. I haven't gotten my boyfriend to read it yet, so we're going to do a read together in the near future. He doesn't know this yet, but it's happening. I've read Warbreaker twice, and Mistborn three times? I want to say 3, but I'm not positive. And then Stormlight Archive I've read about 13 times in like the last 6 years. So you know where my love is. Anyways, that's that on that. Anytime I can bring anybody else into the Cosmere, it's a good time. It's a good time. Life Before Death Radiance. Just so you know, our little outro saying Life Before Death Radiance, that is from the Stormlight Archive. So if you're curious about that, you should read the Stormlight Archive. You should do it. You should do it. Life Before Death Radiance. See you next time.